my poems are about my life. And so I write about a number of different things. And a lot of those themes come up from time to time, and a lot of words reoccur in different poems. Love, compassion, justice, all reoccur a lot. But essentially, to say it in a way my dad, the Baptist preacher, might have said, I write what's laid on my heart every morning. Can't help, but some of these are about my life, right? And so I come from very poor people in rural West Tennessee and southeast Missouri, the Boot Heel of Missouri. My dad's mother was she was a daughter of a sharecropper and tenant farmer. Her husband, my grandfather on my dad's side, was American Indian. And he worked on the docks, the river docks, Mississippi River docks in Caruthersville, Missouri. My mama's people, she told me after I was grown that they were Black Indians, which is a thing. I didn't know it when she told me, but it is a thing. It's, you know, people whose blood and race is commingled, is combined. As a friend of mine said, you can tell by my heritage, my people were lovers, not fighters. So this poem is a little bit about how I feel about where I'm from. Back in the bottomlands where I was born and really raised, the land leading down to the rivers was so low it flooded every spring. And in the flooded woodlands flourished stunning cypress trees. When they grew in water, they grew knees that poked up above the water. The knees breathed for the trees. They made wonderful lumber, beautiful and fire resistance. And so Grandpa's acumen and oxen paid for the farm that Mom was born and bred on. So that mud from these bottomlands is mixed in my blood, proud of all that mud and blood and roots. I still love much of the way we lived, hunting and fishing in the wild trackless bottoms where most didn't go. I love to fish for brim and bass and catfish, then cleaning a mess for Mama to fry with hush puppies. For a lot of reasons, most of them personal, but some of them political and some of them patriotic. I think, for me, Dr. King is the greatest American. That has to do with my faith. It has to do with his sacrifice. And it has to do with his message. And so every year, I used to go with Reverend Orange and Dr. Lowry and Mrs. Lowry and Reverend Jackson, sometimes Andy, and often John Lewis, back to Selma to commemorate the, massacre on the Selma Bridge, where where John Lewis was almost killed, still suffers from that beating he took that day. And I don't know, I was thinking about Dr. King, and I was thinking about that march, and you got to know that Selma is in the what they call the Black Belt of Alabama, and it's named for both the soil and the people who lived there. Those were where the most important and richest plantations were in Alabama and Georgia, middle parts of the state where the soil was really that, and then in Mississippi, it was the Delta. So I was thinking about, it was that march from Selma to Montgomery that led most directly to the passage of the Voting Rights Act in 1965. And in the movie about Selma, you see my friend Reverend Orange. He's driving Dr. King in a car. He was a professional football player for a minute. But he's about 6'5", weighing a little over 300 pounds, and a mountain of love. So I was thinking about all that, and he was there before the march, and he was the organizer. And he was good friends with a fellow named Jimmy Lee Jackson, who was murdered the night before by the Selma police before the march. And so anyway, I wrote this. I sometimes wonder what it is that Dr. King missed. Could he still feel the South Alabama breeze on his cheek? Or was his mind too consumed with worry on the march from Selma to Montgomery? Did the red velvet cake still taste as great on tables of church ladies in Birmingham when Bull Connor was turning loose dogs on kids? Or was his heart too dark with fear for their lives? Not his own. There's no indication he ever feared death. Not even in Memphis when he marched with the sanitation men on strike for justice. In Memphis, did Dr. King take a break to watch the Mississippi River roll by? Or was his soul open to any beauty on the day, April 3, he peeped his own death? What did Dr. King miss that blesses me every day? Yeah. The events I write about are kind of seared in my mind and very vivid. I remember sounds, and some of these were big deal kind of things, right? Come on in. We just started. There's a guy in the room who's a much better poet than I am, Tom Donwan. I'm glad that he's here.